Hey everybody, John Fenn here, Church Without Walls International, CWOWI.org. We are a house church network. We celebrate the gathering of saints by meeting in homes, rotating who leads, who hosts. It's not sermon oriented at all. You just share what's on your heart or whatever the Lord has given you. You'll be amazed at how you become sensitive to the things that the Lord is doing in your spirit, and a core group of people develop, and it becomes like family. There's food involved usually, and you share. Pray for one another, see the Lord do miracles in each other's lives. It's amazing. So anyway, it's also going to affirm you differently. It's not going to be like stained glass and woodwork or the big schedule with lights and smoke and laser beams and stuff, laser lights and all that stuff. No, no, no. This is very, very mundane, very down to earth, but it's rich. It's rich because it's real. So check it out, cwowi.org, and our EU website, cwowi.eu. All right, so today talking about the promises and receiving the promises quicker. When we have a promise from the Lord given to us, let me just say this: there's a whole culture built up around receiving the promises faster. People decree, they declare. That's what it's called, decree and declare. And they'll speak over, or they'll speak health over, they'll speak life over. They will. We decree we're going to be this. We are blessed. We are the head and not the tail. We are blessed coming in. We are blessed going out. And then they say all these things, trying to implement, trying to receive the promise into their life. And sometimes it's other promises, like the Lord has promised you that you'll be promoted next year, or that good things are coming, or whatever the case may be. And so there's this whole culture built around it. It's like to receive, to receive, to receive. I want to receive the promises. What has God promised me? And so we look at the promise as the fulfillment of something in our lives. We look at that and we receive a promise. The scripture jumps out at us. We feel the Lord has spoken to us or revealed this to us. And we look at that as an answer to prayer. This is something about something being fulfilled in our life. And so a great frustration develops when it doesn't happen or when there's a delay. How do you receive it quicker? Well, our life is to agree with heaven, to pray that the Father's will that's done so quickly in heaven and immediately in heaven, that his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So when we examine this, we have to turn to 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. And it says that his divine power has given to us everything that pertains to life and godliness. So if you come up with a need in your life that was unexpected for you, you've got to realize it was not unexpected to the Father. And everything that pertains to life and godliness has been provided through the knowledge of him who called us to glory and virtue. That's 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. So when you come up on something and say, I need this in my life, then you say, okay, Father, reveal your provision. So many times I do this, just being in the ministry and dependent on people's offerings and such, that, I do this often. A need will come up and I'll just say, Father, how do you want to handle this? How are you going to fulfill this? Father, reveal your provision for me. And it's also pertaining to godliness, so that when you're in a time of temptation and trial and testing and everything else, that his provision has been made. And so you say, Father, help me through this. Your provision's been made. Give me the spiritual strength. Give me the moral strength, whatever I need, because it has been provided through the knowledge of him who called us to glory and virtue. Now, the very next verse says this: through these things are given to us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these, that is, by the promises, that by these we might become partakers of the divine nature. Because we've escaped the world, we've escaped the lust of the world, or the corruption of the world, which is in the world by lust, or by that desire for sin. So the whole verse, 2 Peter 1, verses 3 and 4, says that according as everything that pertains to life and godliness has been provided through the knowledge of him who called us to glory and virtue. And by this we are given exceeding great and precious promises. Here come the promises, that by these we might become partakers of the divine nature. Now stop right there. We receive the promises and we think this is answered prayer. Thank you. This is what I needed. This is a fulfillment of something. But he looks at it. If you look from heaven's perspective, it says that the exceeding great and precious promises have been given to us so that we might become a partaker of the divine nature. So we look at it as answered prayer, but he looks at it as working his divine nature in us. And so while we are waiting for the promises, while we are doing what's right, he is working his divine nature in us. Let's look at Joseph as an example in Genesis 37. Joseph, I mean, study him out. He says he's an arrogant 17-year-old. He receives dreams of the sun and moons and stars bowing down to him, and the sheaves of wheat bowing down to him, which he takes as his father and his brothers all bowing down to him at some point in time. And he has the arrogance to share all that with them. And of course, he's already his dad's favorite son, the coat of the quilted coat, the coat of many colors, the coat of many pieces there. And he's the foreman. He is in charge. We're told there in Genesis 37, he was sent out by his dad to go check and see how his brothers are doing in the field. So he's the foreman. He's the boss. He's everybody else is older than him. This 17-year-old kid is, if you look at the tribes of Israel, I mean, he's the boss over 30-something-year-olds. And he's arrogant about, hey, you're going to bow down to me one day. Well, what happened between the time of age 17 and the time of 30? Well, his brothers sold him into slavery. He went into Potiphar's house, was falsely accused, thrown into prison. It was only because of the gifting at the proper time exalted him to the place where he became in charge of the food supplies of Egypt, became essentially the prime minister of Egypt. But it was between ages 17 and 30, those 13 years, that even though he received the promises at age 17, he had to become a partaker of the divine nature. You could not have the same arrogance that was in that 17-year-old as a 30-year-old in charge of all the food of Egypt over that 14-year period, 7 years of abundance, 7 years of famine. The Lord wouldn't put somebody in that position. So he had to work the divine nature. Think about it in your life. Think about David. Think about all the trials and tribulations that he went through. And the Father and the Lord were working the divine nature in him. So when you go through something, and you're going through a trial, you're going through a test, and you look at the promise, it's like, Lord, you promised. I just feel a peace in my spirit about this, but it's not happening. Then instead of looking at it from your perspective and saying, oh, Lord, hurry up with this promise, hurry up and fulfill this, look at it from his perspective and ask yourself, how can I become how can I grow more? How can I become part of his divine nature? What are you trying to work in me by giving me this promise? Jesus, of course, is the highest example of having received the promise that he knew why he was sent to this earth. He knew he was going to die, but he did go through the tests and the trials of making disciples for all those years, the persecution, the Garden of Gethsemane, where the final decision was made to go to the cross. All the different things that the Father is working in Jesus in this time. Yes, there's character development. Yes, you can see when he comes down from the Mount of Transfiguration in Luke 9, learning of his death, which would happen in Jerusalem, you can see his mood changes, his attitude changes, and he's doing what the Father wants him to do. But he's our example of how to endure while receiving the promises, or going through what we need to go through to receive the promises. And so we look at that in our lives, and instead of saying, oh, Lord, hurry up, and oh, where is this promise that you promised, and everything else, we look at it and say, Father, how can I become a partaker of the divine nature? What are you trying to work in me? And you have only to look at the fruit of the Spirit from Galatians 5, love, joy, peace, long-suffering or consistency, gentleness, meekness, kindness, all those things. You have only to look at what Peter said in the following verses of our text today. In 2 Peter 1, 3 and 4, everything that pertains to life and godliness has been provided through the knowledge of him who called us to glory and virtue, and through these things are given to us exceeding great and precious promises, so that we can become partakers of his divine nature. And adding to your faith, giving all diligence, add knowledge and moral excellence and patience and consistency in that, and self-control and godliness and brotherly love and agape love. And if these things are in you and abounding, they will make you so that you're not barren, you're not unfruitful in the Lord Jesus Christ. That's 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 through 10. And so, or 3 through 8. And so I just encourage you. This is what I'm saying. I'm just encouraging you. When you're standing on the promise, you're waiting for the promise, don't look at it from your perspective. Look at it from his perspective. That's the quickest way to get your promise, is to become the partaker of the divine nature, to learn what you need to learn as the promise is coming. And he is faithful and will do it. All right. Hope this has been a blessing. God bless. Bye-bye.